Greetings from the Place Church and the University City United Methodist Church. John, I want to thank you for allowing us to share space. But more importantly, thank you for allowing us to be in partnership trying to do ministry. You know, that's an anomaly because we say we're united, but we are somewhat segmented. So I appreciate the heart that you have here and the people at University City.
Well, here we are, two United Methodist congregations sharing one big campus and facility, and we were this close right before this pandemic hit us of coming together. We'd had a couple of conversations, and we even had a really exciting event planned for this summer. Of course, we've long shut that down and passed over, coming out there in the parking lot to reach the community. So yeah, it's good that we're reviving our conversation and trying to help our two churches become stronger and healthier as we seek to be more embracing of all kinds of folks. So I'm kind of curious now, you mentioned something last time we talked about the women coming together, because you know we've had that Ebenezer and University City men's thing, and tell me a little bit about your thought there.
So I'm glad you said that, John, because you know we did have plans to do something together, and we have other plans, and so you have a group of men talking, and I just thought it would be a great idea if we could bring the women together. You know, I have two ladies I think it would be great to have the conversation and allow us to talk about this thing called race. Because, you know, we hear so much about racism, and I think if we talk to one another, we will put down some of the fear.
Yes.
And we would realize that we're all Christian, we're all red-blooded, we're all God's creation. So why can't we do this thing together and be unified? Yeah. So I think this conversation, and we're talking about it with sooner than later. Hopefully the next time we come together, we will have all of the details in place and ready to go, and we will have 7 to 10 from each church.
Yeah. Well, I was sharing just the idea of this with one of the deacons at Ebenezer. A couple of weeks ago, we were having a men's prayer fellowship, just distance and mask and all. And I said that you had this vision of women from the three churches coming together. So within the next week or so, he sent me some names and contact information. So I will get that to you, and let's pull this group together, and then they can figure out where they want to go with this conversation. With the two, you got a black and a white female facilitator. Yes. Lining up, and so yeah.
We have a black and white female facilitators, and they both are phenomenal. And the thing that you will love about them is the fact that they will not allow the meeting to get out of hand. And that's some people's fear when you start talking about race. Will they persecute me for saying something the wrong way? But we all know that the wrong way is really just a lack of understanding. And so if we can talk about it, bring it together, I think it's going to be great. The only problem I see with this, John, we may not have enough space, because I've had two other churches that heard from some of my people that was on the casting group saying, hey, we would like to be involved. And I was like, wait a minute, we're going to start with these three first, and we'll talk about that later.
Well, we can start small and then grow. No. But as we move further into this pandemic, and we can't do that big outside event like we had talked about doing yet, what else might we do? You know, we've been doing some book studies, and are there other activities or anything that you can think of from the Places angle that you would like to offer up as something that we could do together?
So what if we came up with a book study? We're looking at a couple books now. What if we came up with a book study and we had several weeks, but the book study was really centered around getting to know the different cultures, the different races, the different ethnicities, and not just about the arguments that we hear all the time, but really about getting to understand why you think the way you think, based on your culture, based on the way you grew up. And there are several out there that we're looking at. As a matter of fact, there's another lady, she's a white lady, that has done some interesting research on this. And the reason I put emphasis on white lady, because I know that a lot of white people today, and I hope that's not offensive, because I'm black, and you insult me when you try to describe me as not being black. And that's who we are, and that's our culture. But once we understand our cultural differences, then we may better understand each other. And these books will lend to that and give us a chance to explore areas that we normally would feel uncomfortable talking about. But because it's in the book, now we can unpack that and better understand each other.
And over a period of time. Because as you mentioned, that fear factor, you know, we've learned in the People's Supper movement that if we're going to change only moves at the speed of trust. And you got to have the relationship to build the trust, like we've been developing over the years. So we're actually, this week we're finishing up a 4-week study on Derwin Gray's The High Definition Leader. Had about 25 people over 2 different groups on Wednesday and Thursday nights. And we're all thinking as we come to the end of this about creating a personal action plan.
Okay.
Do you need to cultivate a friendship with somebody where you work? Do you need to join an organization? Do you feel like you need to take another step? What is it that you need to do personally? So we might have some people who would be ready. So if the place will name a book title or something and call us together, I like that. We can start thinking about that.
The next time we meet, we will set a book right there in the middle so we can focus in on it and talk about that, because John, is needed. You know, I get a little frustrated. Well, I get a lot frustrated when I hear churches. I don't care if it's Baptist, Methodist, United Methodist, AME Zion, Lutheran, non-denomination. Why are we so divided and segmented when we say we believe in the same God? We profess Christ as our Savior. We read the same 66 books of the Bible, but we still say, you know, 11 o'clock, 10:30 is the most segregated time. And some churches have done a great job in that. But you know, originally the United Methodist Church, the Methodist Episcopal Church, let me correct that, was one of the founders in bringing everybody together in worship. So we need to get back to that. And I think that's our calling, John, yours and mine.
Well, I appreciate the friendship we have and the work we're trying to do. Is, you know, as we get farther away from the killing of George Floyd, when so much erupted all over the country and even in the churches, you know, as we get farther away from that, I think our commitment is to stay the course, go deeper and longer so that we can address the issues, really get to know each other, hear more stories, and then figure out what kinds of systemic or institutional or structural changes that need to take place. And then we'll have a relationship of a multi-ethnic congregation here together, our 2 congregations, Ebenezer, maybe some other churches in North Charlotte, working together for the good of all in the community. That's my hope and dream.
Well, that's a good one, but you hit a sore subject there, John. See, the George Floyd situation for most black people, it's just another one. You know, there was a situation in Washington with 2 ladies, and there was a situation here in Charlotte. There's situations.
Family in Colorado this week.
You know, and so you see these things, and yes, we need to talk about the system we have in place, but where's the church in all of this? The church used to be the reckoning voice, and now the church cannot play politics. The church needs to care for God's creation. And so when you say we're moving away from the George Floyd situation, and for some, they feel like, okay, it's down the road now, we can move away from that. But if there hasn't been a systematic change, then were the eyes ever really open, or did we just get a little dust in it? Because at some point, we have to continue to make people aware right's right and wrong's wrong. And if the church would do that and do it with love, then we can have these conversations, because we're not trying to threaten, bully, or intimidate you. We're just trying, I'm going to offend people when I say this, I just want to love the hell out of you and all of your issues, so you'll get to know me well enough to realize that he's all right. He loves me in spite of who I am, because we all have some in spite ofs.
All right. All right. Well, good. Well, thanks for coming and leading us here today. Well, we're glad you're here. And University City and Place, we'll keep this conversation going. We'll have other community leaders and pastors over the next several weeks as we become more committed as the Church of Jesus Christ.
One more question.
Yeah, okay.
I wonder, would some of your people and my people be willing to have a discussion like this, like we're having?
Okay.
You know, some questions that they've come up with, and really wrestle with that. Because, you know, I listened to a presentation today about the difficult conversation. But I think if we start having enough difficult conversations, the light will come on.
Sounds good. Well, when you bring that book title back, let's talk some more about that very idea of bringing our folks together.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Thanks, University City, and thank all of you for watching this, and pray over it and pray for us that we will become a church for all people, loving, growing, not in numerically only, but growing in our relationship with God so we can be a world changer.
Amen.